Hello, folks. My name is Jonathan Fowler, and I'm presenting my research into the role of school libraries in the instruction of English language learners. According to Corey Mitchell in Education Week, between 2000 and 2020, the number of ELL students in K through 12 schools increased by more than a million, and there are now nearly 5 million English language learners in the American public school system. Although there are many factors that impact an ELL student's education, the research clearly illustrates that school libraries and instructional librarians can play a critical role in their success. In conducting my research, I noticed a trend among the articles. To varying degrees, each of the authors touched on both the academic and social emotional support that libraries can provide, and they all discussed at least one obstacle that school libraries face in developing quality ELL friendly collections and programming. Not surprisingly, the academic support offered to ELL students by school libraries was the most consistent and compelling aspect of the research. Libraries are a perfect place for an English language learner to continue developing their skills through a variety of activities. But in order to draw students into the library in the first place, school librarians must be sure to provide access to a warm, welcoming space that encourages students to take risks and fosters a sense of belonging and community. Finally, each author discusses some of the obstacles librarians face in attempting to achieve these goals. Most commonly, funding issues impact everything from resource acquisition to adequate staffing. Access to quality resources in the appropriate languages at an affordable cost is another hurdle to providing quality resources. Sometimes the fault lies with the librarian who fails to develop a collection that adequately meets the needs and reflects the student population. Despite these obstacles, however, there are still librarians out there that are doing such great work that the research can't help but show that school libraries have a profound impact on English language learners. The first article I read, by Marcela de Souza, is a little bit older than the others, but I wanted to include it because it is based on testimonials from ELL students themselves, each of whom discusses the role the school library had in their education. The study conducted by de Souza was based on 18 low-income English language learners of Mexican descent who had emigrated to the U.S. between the ages of 4 and 14, knowing no English, and were enrolled in an ESL program at various public schools in Central California. Of these 18 students, all had gone on to graduate high school, and all were, at the time of the study, enrolled in a college or university program. 12 of the 18 students explicitly mentioned the critical role that the library played in both their academic and social success. Because these students were from low income families whose parents spoke little, if any, English, access to books and other materials for school was extremely limited. Using the resources at the school library was a necessity for all of them, and it also provided a safe haven from the myriad stressors and distractions they had outside the quiet walls. As one student remembers, most of the time I would spend recess with my friend Bianca. We'd go to the library and work on homework or study for tests. I still remember the little kids' books we would pick up and read every single word from. Now everything has changed because of that, and I feel proud of it. Throughout her article, D'Souza provides case after case where a student was able to utilize the library as a place to develop and hone their skills with a new language and to find their voice as a student and as an individual. In her article, Regard More, Not Regard Less, Welcoming All to the Sanctuary of the School Library, Barbara Galbadon continues the idea of the school library as a welcoming place, taking it one step further, perhaps, and calling it a sanctuary. Galbadon's main argument is that in order to be a welcoming, safe space for English language learners, it needs to reflect those students, to show them that they are welcome and belong there. This can be done in many ways that reflect both the academic and social emotional support of the students. The first, according to Gabaldon, is to develop a collection that reflects the student population. While all students need to see themselves reflected, it is especially important for ELL students, who often already feel as though they are invisible or don't belong. If the ELL collection is an afterthought that takes up a small corner off to the side of the library, how might that reflect on the student's sense of place? If they can't find any books about their homeland or in their native language, what might that say about the importance of the student's heritage? Even with a strong collection, though, if the student can't access it, then it isn't doing anyone any good. So, providing adequate access is another critical point in Galbadon's research. Flexible hours that allow students ample time to access the library's resources can be a great way to help ELL students. Perhaps Galbadon's strongest point comes when she says we can't operate a neutral library, that is, one that serves all patrons regardless of background. We cannot disregard the backgrounds of our students. In fact, we should regard them fully and completely when considering how we develop our collections and programming. The next article I read is entitled School Libraries Addressing the Needs of ELL Students by Peggy Henderson Murphy. In this article, Murphy discusses a number of ways that school libraries can support English language learners, and again, these methods reflect both the academic and social emotional needs of this particular population. According to Murphy, the most critical aspect of helping ELL students develop their language skills is providing a robust collection that speaks to them in both their native and their second languages. The strong ELL section is one that will feature a variety of texts, from easy readers and popular YA titles to graphic novels and nonfiction that cover a wide range of topics. Having resources available in both languages, according to Murphy, can help the student in their language development while also making them feel seen and comfortable. Murphy also advocates strongly for the makerspace movement and discusses the many ways that they can support ELL students' academic and emotional needs. Academically, makerspaces provide an outlet for English language learners to demonstrate their skills in ways that minimize the language barrier, and they are a great way to promote social interaction through shared activity and play. Murphy reports that makerspaces provide opportunities to boost the confidence of ELL students in both areas. Of course, Murphy also recognizes obstacles similar to those discussed in the previous articles. Relying on studies by the American Library Association and the School Library Journal, Murphy reports that budget issues and inadequate collection development often limit the ability of school libraries to provide quality ELL resources and programming. The title of my next article, by Stephen Krashen, asks, do libraries and teacher librarians have the solution to the long-term English language learner problem? I'm not quite sure Krashen ever answers this question, at least not clearly, but he does lay out a three-phase process that students, both native and second language learners, go through in the development of academic language. The first stage is storytelling, and what Benico Mason calls story listening. In this phase, young learners listen to stories read aloud and hear how words and sentences and stories are put together. Krashen reports that this stage helps ELL students develop vocabulary, reading, writing, and listening skills, often at a rate similar to students learning in their native language. This first phase sets the stage for the second phase, which focuses on self-selected free reading. In this phase, Krashen reports that the research shows that those who make self-selected reading a habit make far greater gains in nearly all aspects of literacy. He goes on to claim that reading for pleasure correlates with higher scores on the TOEFL and TOEIC tests, which measure for academic language acquisition. The final phase of Krashen's three-phase process, which he calls self-selected reading in an area of high interest, is the most challenging, but it is what brings ELL students to the highest level of literacy development. This phase, where reading is narrow and limited to certain topics and authors of particular interest, prepare the learner for more challenging texts and more critical and analytical thinking, and it is often achieved at the college and postgraduate levels. In addition to this three-phase process, Krashen also notes the obstacle that poverty can present to the ELL student, who, as noted in previous articles, is more likely to come from a low-income background and therefore lack adequate access to the resources that allow them to successfully navigate this process. After conducting this research, the critical role that a school library and an instructional librarian can play in the academic and social-emotional development of an ELL student is clear. Whether it is through the books in the library's collection, through programs and activities offered, or through the instructional expertise of the librarian, the library can offer ample resources and opportunities to help English language learners develop the skills necessary to navigate the classrooms and the hallways of their school with confidence. What is equally clear are the hurdles that prevent school libraries from providing these opportunities. Whether it is the socioeconomic factors that impact school funding and library budgets, a collection that lacks adequate representation, or a lack of access to the resources themselves, there are many factors that limit the ELL programming in school libraries. Now is the time that we must figure out how to remove these obstacles so that these libraries and the students who need them can reach their full potential. As I wrap up my presentation, I have two questions for you to consider. First, what are some ways a collection development policy can target the academic and social emotional needs of ELL students? Second, in what ways might a particular school's population or demographics impact the budgeting decisions regarding the resources and programming for English language learners? Thank you for your time and for considering these questions. I look forward to seeing your presentations. Take care.